Okay, folks, we're going to go ahead and start at this point, just to make sure that we have enough time to get through our presentation tonight. I know there's a lot of interest in our speaker and in her topic. So before I introduce Dr. Maryam, I'd like to just review with everybody what our ground rules are. As hopefully everyone can see the captions, or can everyone see? Yes? Okay. Um, this meeting is being recorded. We do present the opportunity for those that can't attend to view the meeting afterward. The meeting is put out on our YouTube channel, which is accessible along with all of the other meetings we've conducted over the last couple of years from our website. If everyone can please to make sure at this point to turn their audio off. When you ask a question, you'll be called on, and then you can enable your audio and then turn it off again, once you're done. If you could please hold the questions. Dr. Maryam will be taking questions throughout the presentation, but if you can get her to just give her a chance to complete the thought or the section before we get into some of the questions, that would be great. Please use raise hand at the bottom of your screen and you'll be called on so that we can have an organized dialogue. With no more ado, let's go ahead. I'd like to introduce Dr. Maryam. Dr. Maryam is a professor at Emerson University, where she is actively teaching and doing research in the School of Communications. She has both public research as well as presenting in both US and international conferences, in addition to seeing clients, many of whom are early in their hearing loss journey as young adults or children. Dr. Maryam also deals with adults, folks like us, so we'll get her care and her knowledge with us today. So with no more ado, if I can turn it over to Dr. Maryam. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. And Carrie, if I could ask that you stop sharing because I'm going to put up the presentation. Thank you so much. I will, as Carrie mentioned, take questions at any time in the presentation. I really value, all your comments, thoughts, questions, etc. And I want this to be interactive. We have a lot to get through in the 60 minutes, so I'll do my best to keep the pace reasonable so that everybody takes in the information, but also steady so that we can finish everything on the agenda. So I'm going to share the screen. And I don't know, Carrie, if it's possible for you to please drop the file that I just shared with you in the chat, since we have most everybody here now. So you're welcome to keep a copy of the presentation slides that I'm sharing tonight. If you have questions at the end of the presentation, my email address is on the very first slide. So you're welcome, anyone's welcome to reach out to me with comments, questions, etc. So I'm going to go into full screen mode. And Carrie, you mentioned people can raise their hands. We see that like momentary when we're sharing the screen and then it goes away. So if you feel like your hand was not seen, please feel free to also use the chat to drop a comment or add a question for us. I just want to acknowledge that I created this series of PowerPoint slides using Copilot. We're supposed to disclose any use of AI moving forward, but it is heavily revised and the activities are activities that I created for us tonight. So our topic is really about lip reading tonight, but as I was chatting with Carrie right before the presentation, we really can't think of lip reading as sort of a standalone strategy. Lip reading skills for hearing and individuals with differences in their hearing varies widely from anywhere from 15%, like 1.5, all the way to about 80%. That's the statistic that I've seen in the past. I want to let you know that even though I know a lot about lip reading and I can present you with information tonight, that I'm actually not a very good lip reader. So with that, let's get started with what is lip reading. So tonight we're going to focus on some of the visual cues that you can pick up on a speaker's mouth, overall face, so even like a frown, and different facial expressions, and then the entire body, so different gestures and how you position the body, etc., can all be part of the visual cues that we consider lip reading skills or visual cue reading skills. And they're helpful as long as you use them with other kinds of strategies. Okay, so we'll practice a bit of the lip reading or reading the face, the body, and the mouth tonight. Okay. So again, it's multisensory. It includes visual cues on the lips. So we'll talk about jaw movement a little bit, lots of visual cues on the lips themselves, and then facial expressions, and then body language. So different gestures, posture, give a lot of information, including emotional tone, which is part of the messaging or the meaning of messages. I also want to add a sort of a cautionary note. Most of us probably are in areas with a pretty large percentage of people from culturally diverse backgrounds. So when it comes to body language and facial expression, we just have to be mindful that the way that we interpret something may actually not match the way that the person intended it. There's a lot of cultural variation in how people use their hands, what kinds of gestures they use, and what the same exact gesture means in one cultural community versus another cultural community. Just something to be mindful about. Okay, and then again, lip reading is going to be limited. So we'll practice both of our activities will include how context clues can be really, really helpful and increase your lip reading skills. And then we'll also talk a little bit if we have time about environmental awareness and using some environmental strategies, and some improving your auditory access to information through the use of technologies and strategies. So facial expressions, we talked about that's one type of visual cue. So just really quickly, if you could again unmute yourself or drop a note in the chat, how would you interpret the facial expression on the left?
The left is happy.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Anybody with something different? Okay, we have lots of happy. So it's a really clear and pretty universal facial expression. Okay, in the middle.
Annoyed, angry.
Yeah, annoyed or angry, which are different, right? Okay, so you combine that with the context clues, what you hear, plus what you pick up on the mouth and the face. And all of that is helpful in understanding the total message. Okay, and then on the right.
Surprise.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. And I'm checking the chat as well. Surprised. Okay, so we have pretty good consensus about what these could mean. And of course, these are pretty obvious facial expressions, which is why it was so easy to find them, as opposed to some more subtle ones. Okay. All right. So moving on. Okay. Again, this is in a group situation, but now focusing more broadly on the body. What can we see that's considered body language, quote unquote? And do they have meaning to you?
The lady on the right is not interested. She's reading a
Exactly.
book
Exactly.
or
So
a phone.
there, exactly. So there's pretty good consensus that if you lack eye contact as someone is talking to the group or addressing you personally, that signals disinterest. Okay, or boredom. Okay, we have a few comments. So we have smiling, eye contact, person on the phone, right, is the one that we just pointed out. Leaning in. So again, that could be actually a culturally established norm that if you lean in, that you're showing interest and attention. But there could be cultural variation with that. Okay. I remember one time actually, I heard that when I'm working with a certain community in a local area where I was working, that nodding and saying okay does not signal comprehension. It's just saying, I respect what you're saying. So cultural variation, but overall, again, through the last couple minutes, we also have a lot of agreement as to what different kinds of visual cues on the face and the body mean. Okay, so now we're getting down to the lip reading cues, right? So English has a certain number of consonant sounds and vowel sounds. Some of them are visible and many of them are not. Again, that's another reason why it's so important for us to improve our lip reading, face reading, body reading skills as much as possible, but then combine them with other strategies. So if you end up continuing to practice lip reading skills, you would be grouping sounds together in terms of what's the feature that's visible, and then thinking about how certain sounds look exactly the same on the lips. So if I were to just give you a silent posture for one of these three sounds and ask you, what is, and you were to guess, any of your guesses could be correct. It could be that I'm getting ready to pronounce the p sound, the b sound, or the sound. It all looks the same. So P, B, and me, those three words, right, would look the same, exactly the same on the mouth. And again, you would have to use the context. What makes sense in this sentence based on the topic of the conversation? Okay, so these are considered the bilabial or the two lips together sounds. The other visible sounds include the labiodental or the lip to teeth sounds, and they look like, right? So again, you can't tell if I'm producing the f or the v because they look exactly the same. So you'd have to combine that with your auditory skills of, is it quieter? Or is it louder and voiced? V. And then I'll also again use context clues, etc. Okay, we can see the interdental sounds, which are somewhat unique to English. Not many languages around the world have the th and the v sounds. So these are considered visible as well. Okay, and then the rounded vowels. So we have oo, o, ow, that have clear lip shapes. So if I say, what would you guess?
Ooh. Ooh.
Okay, so Betty, you're catching the vowel, but there's also a consonant. So I now put together the bilabial sound plus the rounded vowel. Okay, so we'll do some exercises with that in a minute. What I was trying to, or what I was mouthing was moo, like the sound that a cow makes. Okay, but it could also be poo or boo. Okay. Okay, so we talked about how some sounds look the same, and then there's lots of sounds that we cannot see because they're produced on the inside of the mouth. Okay, so all of these that are listed here, t, d, sh, k, g, if I were to say them without voicing, you wouldn't be able to to tell where my tongue tip is, or if the back of my tongue is going up versus the front of my tongue. They're just not visible in normal speech, right? Without exaggeration. Okay. So lots of things we cannot see. Again, going back to the importance of using other strategies to make sense of everything you hear and see on the lips, face, and the body. Any questions or comments? I saw a few things in the chat, and unless I actually stop sharing, I cannot see them. I don't know, Carrie, if you can help me out with that. Any
I think
questions?
just the comment, Maryam, that
Yeah.
again, culture really matters when we're trying to interpret not just what somebody is saying, but what they're trying to mean.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. All right. Okay. So here's a little test. Now that we talked about the lip sounds, the lip to teeth sounds, the teeth sounds, the rounded vowels, top left hand, any guesses as to what sound this is? It's
F.
yes. It could be the start of a nasty word. Yes.
Yeah, F, right.
Yes, that's right. It could also be the v, because remember they look exactly the same. How about top middle?
Do,
Okay.
do,
Who do you think you are? So you're picking up on the lip rounding because who would look very similar to that, right? So maybe a rounded vowel, but harder to tell, right? As opposed to the lip to teeth sound. How about top Right.
And like,
Eh.
Good, very good. That is actually a photograph on Google for the sound, like and apple. Okay, actor. That's very great. That's very good. Or someone yelling, "Hey!" Okay. Bottom left.
but,
Mhm.
A b or
B.
They all look the same on the mouth, so you just have to really put it together with the rest of the word within the context of the sentence to see which one it is. Or, someone in thought. Okay, these are all great. Okay, then we have the bottom middle.
TH.
That's right.
Ah.
So that's a very distinct sound. Okay, and then finally the bottom right.
Ooh.
Maybe
Ooh.
ooh. Okay, any other guesses?
O.
Oh, good. Okay. Oh, as in like singing as well. Okay. Wonderful. Okay. So these are the few sounds that are visible on the mouth. Okay. So we're going to move on. Okay. Now I'm going to actually say a series of words. I'm going to stop sharing so you can see me a little bit better. And I'm also going to shift my computer. So you're not seeing half my face darker versus the other. So the first time I'll say the word, I'm just going to say the word. Just jot down. You can put it in the chat if you'd like to, or make a note of it for yourself. Okay. And then the second time, I'm going to give you a clue. I'm going to give you a context or a category. Okay. So that should be helpful in figuring out how context or category or topic of a conversation could be helpful to you. Okay. So I will bring up my list. Okay. All right. The first word is
Say it again. Boo.
Ooh.
All right.
okay. So now I'm going to give you a clue. Okay. It's something in the sky.
Moon.
Blue.
Okay. So we're getting repetition, so that might also be playing a role in your improvement, right? First try, second try, third try. But it's also about having that clue because it closes the number of possibilities as opposed to an open set. Okay. So these are not thematic words. So the second word is
Mango.
Piano.
Ooh, very good. Did anybody get that? Anybody
There you
else?
go.
Okay, so I was gonna say it's a fruit. Okay,
Why can you?
so if you have a guess, the first time I say it without the clue, please don't say it out loud yet, because for those people who need the context clue, I'm gonna re-present it, right, with the clue so that it's an exercise of does the context help versus not. Okay, let's see, what do we have in the chat? Okay, okay. Okay, number three, the word is one more time. So if I haven't presented the context clue, but you have a guess, please don't put it in the chat yet. But I see sweet and swing. Okay, so if I say it's something on a playground, if that's the topic of the conversation, you would guess. Okay. Some of you guys are nodding. How many people guessed swing after I said it's something on the playground? Great. Okay. So again, really, the context really helps. Carrie, I think we have a member who can't hear the presentation anymore. Okay, so I am turning my voice off. This is a lip reading exercise. So I guess I should say when we do these exercises, I'm going to turn my voice off because even though all of you have hearing devices, or even if you don't, you have residual hearing. So what you're actually doing in your interaction with people is speech reading. That's a combination of auditory and visual cues. Tonight, because we're focusing on what are the visual cues you can pick up, every time I present a word or a sentence later tonight, I'm going to turn my voice off. Okay, so nothing wrong with the technology, it's just how we're going through the activity.
So, Dr. Maryam, if I could
Yep,
interject, so we have a
sure.
request that you repeat the word after you give the clue so that we can try again to guess if we don't guess it the first time.
Yes, sure. Okay. So I'll do 2 repetitions, no clue, third repetition with a clue, and then I'll actually say what the word was to make sure everybody got it. Okay. Okay, so we are at number 4. Another time. The clue is at the bank. Any guesses?
Deposit.
Good. Okay, very
Gracias.
good. Okay. Typically speaking, multisyllabic words are easier than one-syllable words because you even if you pick up bits and pieces of the word, it helps you put the rest of it together. In addition to knowing it's a word that you hear at the bank. Okay, the topic or the context. Okay, so number 5. Again. Okay, with a clue, it's a word that describes an activity or an experience. Any guesses? That's a hard one, and it's a one-syllable word. Okay, fun. Okay, so you could see maybe the lip to teeth, but the rest of the word is not visible. Okay, so even with a context clue, it may be hard to really fill in the blank. So you are going to be using your hearing, you're going to be using the context of the sentence and not just a clue. Okay, and if you don't hear something later in again, the hour, we'll talk about how you can ask a specific question. Okay, or use some other strategies. Okay, the next word is one more time. With a clue. It's a word that's used to describe food. So I'm going to mouth it again.
Delicious.
Very good. Okay, was that Andrew? The word is delicious, and someone just guessed it. Okay, that's great. Okay, moving on to the next word. Okay, it is I see some people nodding. So the clue
Drive.
is it's a mode of transportation.
Drive.
Yes, and I hear a guess. Drive is the word. Okay, so that was 7 words. If you've only gotten 1 or 2, that's very typical. That's very typical. So I'm going to tell you guys before we finish this activity that I created a set of sentences for an exercise that we were going to do with our clients in the clinic, but a week or 2 had passed. So I'm sitting on the ground and my student is presenting the sentences to our client, and I had forgotten the sentences, even though I had typed them up. And I was testing my own lip reading skills, and I have to tell you, I'm not a very good lip reader. Right? Even though I had created the sentences myself. Okay. So the variation is very real and it's nothing to sort of worry about. If this is something that you're interested in, I think if you keep practicing, you can improve your lip reading skills, but it'll also be important to recognize that you may have to rely on other strategies much more so than just lip reading. So let's do a couple more. Okay. Number 8. Okay. The word is the clue is it's something
Food.
you do with food.
Food. Oh, food.
Any guesses?
Good.
Okay. Something you do with food. Okay, I'm scrolling down. Okay, very good. Oh, yeah, I see a guess. Chew, similar to cook because they both have that medial lip rounded vowel, or chew ends with the ooh, right? It's not in the middle. Um, but the word was cook. Okay. You can't see the k in the beginning and the end. So it's a guess, and unless it's in the context of a sentence, even with that clue, if it's something you do with food, opens up options to things like chew that look similar on the lips. Okay, number 9, we have, that's a good imitation, Betty. Yeah, again. Okay, so the clue is it's a place with a playground.
Park.
Yep, exactly. Okay, context is really helpful. I know I've repeated that a few times. Okay, and then last but not least, okay, is the word.
Oh
Very
shit.
good. Some of you guys are imitating it. So obviously there are visible features, right, for some of the sounds. But if you don't have context, it's really hard. So narrowing it down to it's a place.
Oh shit.
Good. Okay. We have a winner for the lip reading activity. I think, Andrew, you got a lot of them once, especially once you had the context clues. Okay. So comments, questions about what we just did and single word practice. Okay. If not, then I'll share my screen and we can keep going with the presentation. Okay. Okay. Oops. Sorry. That's not what I meant to bring up. Okay. So skills to practice is watching the whole face, right? Predicting based on context. That's the thing that I kept going back to. If you're at a restaurant, think about likely food words, but also actually we're about to practice some sentences at a restaurant. What is it the server is likely to be saying to you, likely to be asking you? Okay. Using rhythm and intonation gives us a lot of additional cues of, is someone asking me a question? Usually WH questions in English have emphasis or a higher pitch loudness level on the WH question, like who, what, where, when. But if it's a yes, no question, we don't have to have any change in the syntax, right? The words can all be arranged in the same way. Like if I were to say, you heard about the excellent presenter, right? If I say it that way with a rise in pitch, it's a question as opposed to, oh, you heard about the presenter, the excellent presenter. Okay, so paying attention to the what's called the supra-segmental, beyond just the sounds, to the rhythm and the intonation is also helpful. Okay, recognizing common phrases visually. So you can, you'll see in a later slide, it'll say you can practice with a buddy. So you can actually create, if we're at the bank, what are we likely to hear? You can create sentences. It's a close set. So you have maybe 10, 15 different sentences or questions that a teller is likely to ask you. And then you take turns practicing with each other. Even though you create the sentences, it's still really about turning the voice off, right? When you're modeling for your buddy and then having your buddy turn their voice off and modeling the sentences in random. So you tune into the mouth cues, the face, etc., to get some additional practice. Okay. But you can ask for keywords. You can ask for the topic, right? We talk in clinic about if you're trying to get involved in the middle of a conversation, two people have already started talking about something, even if you're listening intently and it's relatively quiet, etc., it's much harder to pick up on what two people are talking about as opposed to just saying, what are you guys talking about? As soon as you have the topic, it closes that open infinite set of possibilities to, oh, I'm likely to hear about, and then there's a much more finite set of things that goes through your mind of this is the context or the kinds of things I'm going to be hearing about. Of course, staying relaxed always helps because for anyone hearing a person with a difference in their hearing, etc., anxiety always affects our attention, especially our sustained attention, and that affects everything we do, right? Everything that we're trying to process visually, auditorily, and even through our other senses. Okay, so now I'm gonna present us with a set of sentences, and I'm already giving you the topic. We're at a restaurant, so these are things that you're likely to hear from your server or hostess at the restaurant. Okay, you can write what you think you see, because I'm gonna turn my voice off again. Okay, I'm already giving you the context. It's the theme is restaurants, so I don't have to keep going back and forth. So I'll repeat each of the sentences twice. And then we can talk about what's the experience like for you. And for those of you who are getting the sentences or not getting the sentences, if you have comments like thoughts or questions that you want to share, it would be great to hear from you. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing again because I'll pull up my sentence list. Okay. And for some of you guys who just did the single word exercise, sentences might be easier because you do have the context, right? It's multiple words and not just one word that you're trying to catch. Okay. All right. So again, you're at a restaurant, okay? And you've just walked in, okay? So you're having a conversation or you're interacting with the hostess, okay? So the first sentence is, okay. I'm going to repeat each one twice. That's perfect. Many of you got it the first time around. So because I'm going to repeat it twice, I'm going to ask you guys to hold your answers until the second repetition to give everybody a chance to get that second repetition. Okay. Yes. Hello. Do you have a reservation? Was exactly what I said. Okay. Okay. So the second. Okay. This one's a little bit harder. Okay, so second time. So if you have a guess, you can actually unmute yourself or drop it in the chat. Let's see if we have some. Okay, perfect. Okay, so again, we have some people who are really good lip readers. Would you like a table or booth? Is exactly what I said. Would
Oh,
you
good.
like?
Yeah.
So you might actually hear part of it, right? That's when you would ask a specific question. You asked me if I would like, and I didn't hear the choices. Right. So then the hostess can actually present you or with the information in a different way or not present the entire sentence. So you have a better chance of just catching the phrase that you missed. Okay, great. Would you like? Okay. For some of you, and some of you got the entire thing. So the third sentence.
Hello, I am somebody. May I help you to?
Okay, second presentation.
Hello, I am John. Yikes.
Okay, all right. Carrie, I think that's you. Hello. The only thing that is not exact is it's not John, but Jack.
Jack.
Okay. Names are really difficult. And so we teach our clients in the clinic that if you missed a name and you know that it was a name that you missed, ask for spelling of it. Okay, it's often helpful to hear Jack as opposed to a repetition of Jack, Jack, right? Some names are even harder than Jack, right? Because the sounds are soft and not visible. So that adds to the challenge. And you cannot use context to guess a name. A name is a name. It could be any name within any context. Okay, if that makes sense. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the next sentence. Okay, number 4, we'll do 5 of these.
Would you like hoo-ha? A
Okay, and a
cup of
second
water?
repetition. Wow. Okay. Vicky, that's right. That's exactly what I said. Would you like an appetizer to start? Okay. That's great. Perfect. Okay. Okay. Again, if you're seeing that other people are, getting some of these long sentences and you're not, it's really natural. I just shared with you guys that I was like, what did I type as number 4? I wouldn't remember and I wouldn't catch it on my students' modeling, okay, or presentation. Okay. So the 5th one and the last one, so we can move on to other things tonight. Okay.
Are you ready to order?
Are
A second presentation.
you ready?
Yep. Okay. Okay. I think most of you guys got that. And then there is actually a progression, right? Of like from the time you get to the door and they're going to be seating you all the way to the end when they come to the table. Is there anything else you'd like to order? Are you ready for the bill? Right. So you can also keep that in mind in terms of where are we in the experience of the restaurant and guessing, right? That it's not finite, but it's a more finite list of what could this server be asking me. Anything that you like to share about that experience of single word or sentence lip reading?
Hi, this is this is Kathleen, and I have a severe hearing loss. I think I got one of them. I was looking at your face. I didn't get it.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any recommendations for me that I can practice so that I get this?
Yes. Yes. So most people don't get this kind of training. Even if you sign up for a clinic, usually the focus is on strategies other than lip reading,
Yes.
and also technology, counseling, and those kinds of things. So practicing with a buddy, creating similar activities of like your buddy says, okay, I'm going to think of 10 words, but I'm not going to show you, right? And then walking you through, turning their voice off, walking you through. So just practicing. If you mimic what we did tonight of your buddy says the word, you try to guess it, right? But then they give you a context clue or a class cue. I think practice is helpful. But again, I wouldn't expect that even if you practice every day for a couple of hours a day, that everybody's going to get to 80%. I don't think that's realistic, right? So that's the reason why I keep going back to please think about technologies that are available to you, lighting, seating, background noise, so controlling the background noise, and all the other strategies that some of you have probably learned about already.
Thank you.
Okay. I see comments. It was hard. Yes, lip reading is very challenging. It's frustrating when you ask someone to repeat something. Others jump in and try to tell you versus the person who actually said it. Yes, people try to interpret for you. They try to communicate on your behalf. That's when professionals think we need to do training for the others, the communication partners, the employers, the colleagues, even the students who are working with instructors, for example, who have differences in their hearing. So it takes a lot of work, and I don't think the responsibility should only be on the shoulder of the person with differences in their hearing. I think we need to have training, much more so than we've had, which has been pretty much non-existent. Right, training about what is hearing loss, what does it mean, what are some effective communication strategies. So that is really part of my mission and passion at Emerson. I'm hoping to be part of a small group if I can recruit other people to work with me to train colleagues, administrators, staff people in better understanding hearing and communication. Okay, so let me go back to the presentation. How are we doing on time? Okay, it's about 10 after the hour. Okay. If you don't have a copy of the slides and you're interested in getting them, you can. I'll share my email address at the end, or I don't know, Carrie, how easy it is for you to drop them in one more time, because when people join a meeting, they won't have access to anything that was shared in chat before their entry. Okay, so share, and we go to full screen again. Okay. Okay, so we just talked about this. So it's here for you to reference later. Ask your buddy to speak naturally, by the way. Over-exaggeration is not going to be helpful to you because no one at the restaurant or the bank or wherever else you are trying to communicate is going to be exaggerating their speech. Unfortunately, people misunderstand how to communicate effectively, and oftentimes they might yell but they're not going to be effective communicators, right? So it's important if you're practicing and you're modeling for your friend to speak as naturally as possible and to ask them to do the same thing. I have looked for and I've only found one sort of good and reliable resource for practicing lip reading, and that's the one that I'm sharing here at lipreading.org. So they do have some exercises that you can do online. Okay, and some oral rehab clinics may offer lip reading. I can tell you that um, our clinic, which was closed to our own faculty and staff, but I'm hoping to get some support and offer additional clinics for people in our community, Boston community, is also focused on communication strategies, counseling, and technologies. So it's really hard to find a clinic that offers lip reading skills, but it's possible. So you can reach out to your hearing loss association representatives and see if they know of local people who are offering this resource locally or via Zoom, right, across the country. Okay, we had some comments in the chat. Again, unless I stop sharing, I won't see them. Carrie, is there anything I should be responding to? Okay.
No, I don't see anything, Maryam, at this time.
Okay. Okay. So we do have about 15 minutes. So I'd like to talk a little bit about the other strategies that you can use to improve your overall communication experience. So the first series I have are considered environmental strategies. So I was mentioning to someone right before we started that if you're at a restaurant and you do have the topic or the theme, so you have this relatively finite set of things that could be communicated to you, but the lighting is poor, or you're with a large party and you're sitting away from the person who's doing a lot of the talking, so you don't have really good visual access to their face, plus the poor lighting, so distance and lighting. So to think about actually the light source, right? And also choosing, so intentionally advocating for yourself and choosing well-lit space within the restaurant or within the conference area, wherever it is you're at. Okay, we have lots of comments in the chat. Okay, so let's see. Yes, people are recommending other strategies. Ask them to write it down. Yes, that's an excellent strategy, and some people are very comfortable with it. Type it on their phone. So use your text messaging features on your phone in a different way. Help use speech to text. So technology is changing so rapidly that actually you're going to be able to have access to those kinds of things, speech to text, much more easily now and moving toward the future as we did in the past. We shared information about caption glasses, so live caption glasses, which are now sort of recommended for limited use. So they're being tested in live theater, but I think caption glasses could be really helpful in meetings, right? At the family dinner, right? Or in a restaurant setting where somebody speaks and you can actually see the live transcription in the moment, right? So within the communication situation. So I'd be happy to share any information that I'm bringing up really quickly if you're interested in an email, if you reach out to me. Okay. The caption glasses means you don't have to actually reach out, find, and rely on a live captioner like a service, okay, because you have the technology on you. So I'm really excited about caption glasses actually. Live transcription is a lifesaver. Yes. Okay. Never heard of the glasses, and the one that we looked into is called oh, I always so is it Captiview or Captify? So let's see. Tamara, if I'm saying your name correctly. If you send me an email, I'll send you the link to the company. The co-founder for the live caption glasses that I've actually tried on is hard of hearing himself, right? So he's part of the community and designed the glasses with the community's need in mind. Okay. Lots of good suggestions from within the group about what to do. If someone's next to you, ensure that you sit in a 90-degree angle so you don't have to turn too much or too often. All of these things might be variable depending on the size of your group and who's talking and whether multiple people are talking at the same time. Okay. Yes, there are several brands and manufacturers for caption glasses out there. Captify is just one of them. Carrie.
Yeah, so we have a question,
Yes.
Dr. Maryam, in the
Yes.
chat. So Betty was having dinner with three other friends.
Yeah.
While she's familiar with them, she's
Yeah.
often felt left out of the conversation. So what suggestions would you have for Betty in that situation?
Um, okay. I'm assuming, Betty, that you've shared some suggestions with them. Hearing people are terrible at remembering those suggestions. I can say that because my mom has had hearing loss for many, many years, and I used to share suggestions with family members. When the family gets together, it's all just about the family getting together. Nobody is thinking about how to make communication effective for grandma, right? So it's about really constant reminders. In a group of three, I think it's easier than when my family gets together. It's a group of 10 to 15 with kids, right? So it gets really, really noisy. We published in the Boston Hearing Loss Association newsletter this past month. So for the March newsletter, we published a series of tips. I think sometimes when you share things from like, here's what a speech therapist says, as opposed to here's what I'm asking you, right? That family members sort of listen to it a little bit more of like, oh, this is what a speech pathologist or an audiologist is telling me I need to pay attention to, but that's still not a guarantee. So it's really about, unfortunately, continuous advocacy. It's not that people don't care or don't want to. They're just not conditioned to. They don't think about it. So they use a strategy for 5 minutes and then they go back to their default, right? They forget. So even coming up with some sort of a signal, right? We had a speaker who asked us to signal him when his voice would drop because he's deaf, but he uses spoken communication. So we came up with a signal of like increase volume, please, because your audience can no longer hear you. Okay, might be helpful as opposed to the constant verbal reminder. Anybody else who's found something successful who wants to share? How do you get your family and friends to more consistently use effective strategies? Yes, Carrie.
So in my family, even though 3 out of 4 siblings and my mom have hearing loss,
Mm-hmm.
when the family gets together, as you said, 20
Mm-hmm.
folks, and the energy level is high,
Mm-hmm.
people just, come out of the gate happy to see everyone, and it's just hard.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing we do is when one of us with hearing loss starts
Mm-hmm.
to withdraw,
Mm-hmm.
we will say to the others around, wait, time out,
Mm-hmm.
too loud or too
Mm-hmm.
fast, or you see that this person needs to step out. And that's been helpful because no one really wants to drive a family member away or to
Mm-hmm.
isolate a person.
Mm-hmm.
So we have found that that seems to get to folks more
Mm-hmm.
and help them keep it, in front of their mind than just say the reminder. Because
Mm-hmm.
they really don't want to hurt
Mm-hmm.
a family member by having them isolate or withdraw. So
Mm-hmm.
an
Mm-hmm.
idea.
Yeah, exactly. Marlene, you've had your hand up, and then Sue, I see your hand is also up.
Yes, I I live in a senior housing
Hmm.
development, and I do withdraw and isolate. I do not join in any groups because I don't know what they're saying. Is there any nice way to
Hmm.
say, instead of saying, what? What are they
Hmm.
saying? What can I say that would be nice? At least when a server comes to give me or ask me for a meal, I don't know what they're saying. And I keep on saying, what, what? And it's embarrassing.
Hmm.
What do I, what can I say that would be pleasant?
Okay. I think of two things. One is disclosure. If people know that you have a difference in your hearing, if they have certain communication skills, they tend to communicate differently, right? So they may actually raise their voice. It's important in a restaurant setting where it's really noisy. And they may just articulate better as opposed to be distracted, turn their back to you while they're talking to you, etc. So disclosure is one, and then the reason we talk about technologies in an oral rehab clinic is because nowadays we have accessories. So I don't know, Marlene, if you have, for example, a remote mic. It's a it's sort of like similar to an
No.
FM system, right? It is an FM system. It's a way to improve the signal to noise ratio. So in a restaurant setting, it would work perfectly, right? So you just have it. You actually could hand it over to the server if you're comfortable enough. And if they're speaking close to it, you get really much louder, more clear speech and a dampening of all non-speech noises. So there's lots of different things you don't, again, it's not just about looking at the server and trying to lip read, right? But disclosing so they have a chance to communicate with you differently and then using technologies. Nini.
Is there somewhere that I can get a list?
Mhm.
Can
Mhm.
I contact you and
Yeah.
how to get these abilities to use?
Sure, sure. I can send you accessories that are actually appropriate for your hearing aid. If you use hearing aid,
Oh,
I'll
God,
send you the
yes.
link for that company so you can have a chance to see what is it, how does it work, and do I want to invest in it? They're usually not that expensive.
And you see our names so you can reach us by email.
Yes, I have my email address on the slide. So if you have a copy
Okay,
of the slides, that first slide has my email address.
okay.
Nini, you had your hand up. I'm sorry, Sue. I haven't forgotten you. Yes, I did for a moment. So let's start with Sue, because you had your hand up a while ago, and then Nini.
Right. No,
Yeah,
no, I was just going to say
yeah,
sometimes, especially like a meeting at work, I mean, a family situation, I can, I'm a little better at sometimes just saying, hey, guys, include me, because I
yes,
don't think anybody intentionally wants to not
yes,
include someone.
yes.
However, a work situation, it gets a little awkward sometimes.
Yeah.
So I've actually used
Oh,
humor.
yeah.
I've actually turned what they said into now maybe some people see it as mean, but I
Hmm.
don't really, I guess I just kind of come up with it on the spot, almost like, what was that book that we read, Betty, about Dumb Playground or the death? I forgot the name of the book, but it was what's that big pig sky or pig in the sky or something? It was basically saying, what words get misinterpreted as. So I sometimes will turn around what they say and I'll say, "Did you say?" And I'll turn it into almost like a joke. Everybody laughs a little bit, and then they kind of keep getting that I really do have trouble,
Mm.
especially in a larger group.
Was it
Yeah,
what's that pig outdoors? Sorry.
Thank you. That's it. What's that pig
mm,
outdoors? Yeah.
okay. I see a comment by Jerry in the chat. In the medical community, you can actually disclose, right? So I'll have to, I want to share with you guys that even though we just talked about most people have the best intentions in mind, that's not always true. We're all of us who are here in this room, we have advocacy in mind. We have a long way to go in terms of educating the public. I have had students who've told me we had a deaf patient who was asking, for example, for a paper and pen because they use writing for communication and they never got it from the medical staff. So it's just really, again, it's just really about having these conversations often, sending people out to train and educate medical professionals, people in different settings, university settings, etc., about hearing and communication. I think a lot of people don't even understand the connection or the relationship between hearing and communication. And then extending that to how that affects inclusion versus isolation. Okay. Nini, you had your hand up. Are you still here? Okay, I think we might have lost Nini. Carrie, you have a comment?
Oh, I'm here.
Just wanted
I'm
to-
here.
Oh, Nini. Okay. I don't see you on the screen. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm right there.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I see you.
So,
Okay.
Dr. Maryam, there
There it
are a
is.
couple of
There it
comments
is.
in the chat
That's
for
the one I
to
wanted.
address. We have a request from Jim Rao for how some advice on how to deal with multiple people speaking at the same time.
Mhm. Yeah. So it depends on the setting. The accessory I just mentioned, which is the remote mic, is perfect if you're in a, for example, at a setting having lunch with a group of friends. If you put the remote mic in the center of the table, again, you get much improved signal to noise ratio. It'll pick up on anyone who's speaking. I see, Diana, you're shaking your head. I don't know if you've had a sort of a poor experience with a remote mic, that it doesn't work as well as some people say it does, or maybe it's limited depending on where you're trying to use it. Okay. Um, okay, so I guess I'm getting feedback, right, that even these new technologies that are supposed to be fabulous are not as fabulous. If it's really, really noisy, if it's not a remote mic that has a directional microphone, so it picks up, the voice from any direction as opposed to like in front of it, then that might make a difference. And then it's again back to disclosure and advocacy of these are the three things I need from you guys. So the list, if the list gets too long, I think people get overwhelmed, right? But so choose a couple things that you think are going to be the most powerful and say, can we try to remember A and B, right? Of like taking turns, right? Because if everybody's speaking over each other, there's no way that, I would be able to keep up with the conversation. And then the second thing that's important to you. And then having to remind people all the time. Okay. Sarah.
So you mentioned the remote mic, and I have one of those with my cochlear implants.
Yeah.
And as people have pointed out, it does pick up sound better. You can put it in the middle of the table, but there's still overlapping speech. So as a result, if I pass it around, that
Yes.
works better.
Yes.
If I say, hey, guys, I'd like to hear some of this conversation. Could you please use my microphone? I have to educate them on how to use the microphone, which direction to speak into, and I can get some satisfaction with that. It's still hard though, because people are reluctant to sometimes to use the mic. They think it's strange or maybe has germs on it, but it's worth a try.
Yeah, people are funny in their reactions to things that they're just not familiar with. Yeah. Jerry and then Nini.
What I meant by the medical comment was I tell them every single time they come in and
Yes.
ask my name and my birthday, I
Yeah.
follow it with I'm hard of hearing, even if
Yes.
I've told the same person a dozen times, because they've seen 5 people or 10 people in between time 1 and time 2. And it really has helped when you get used to it and going into an office and all of it. I just
Yes.
automatically follow it with that.
Yes. And I think, I'm hard of hearing or I have hearing loss, however you're comfortable. The disclosure is helpful, but then some people don't know what to do with that. So if you feel like, oh, they don't know how to respond, then, again, it's about those two things that are most important to you. So I need you to A and B. So identify the two things that they should be thinking about and doing. Nini and Betty, I see that you've been trying to raise your hand. So, okay. Nini and Betty.
I meant to turn it off.
I was just gonna say that I could talk for 5 hours about the medical community. Um, I was involved in a great um, project between Harvard Medical School and
Mm-hmm.
Mass General Hospital. And what the goal was to make sure that hearing loss, other
Mm-hmm.
disabilities too, but hearing loss was part of um, the curriculum in the
Yeah.
medical schools. And
Yes.
that's what needs to happen across the board with
Yes.
all disabilities.
Um,
I'll just give one other example. It's just, it is difficult for certain people who use wheelchairs to get up on the exam table. It wasn't until recently that, women in wheelchairs could actually have mammograms because
wow.
the machine wouldn't go down. So
Mhm.
those are just a couple of examples. And the ER in particular is a nightmare.
Mm. Yeah.
Just because the turnover in staff. So like I said, I could go on for 5 hours, but it was great to be involved in that project. I really hope that that becomes a thing.
Yeah, I'm hopeful because I see an increase in, and maybe because it's I'm paying attention to it more, but I'm pretty certain there has been an increase in representation and advocacy. I just dropped the name of a group of physicians, actually, docs with disabilities, who are working on increasing education and advocacy. They advocate for medical professionals with disabilities and patients. And Chris Moreland is a physician who's deaf himself, so he's been involved in this group and does a lot of work on things like communication barriers and effective communication with patients who are deaf and hard of hearing. So if you look up the group, they just actually have two brand new publications. One is focused on medical professionals, and the second one is focused on patients. If you're interested in what's happening in specifically in the medical setting. Okay. Yeah, great. Okay, Sean, I'm glad. I hope I hope you can connect with the group. Betty, you've been
Yes.
patiently waiting.
Oh, yeah, my mic is on. One strategy I used successfully in a medical setting is that it occurred to me if something looks ridiculous, someone's more likely to remember it.
Mm-hmm.
So I was having a procedure done, and I thought, what will be ridiculous? So what I did is I made a sign that I pinned to the top of my shirt, right
Mm-hmm.
below my face.
Mm-hmm.
And used the word deaf because I think deaf is gets through to people
Mm-hmm.
more quickly than hearing loss or hard of hearing, but deaf really
Mm-hmm.
says something, I
Mm-hmm.
think, more powerful. And I say, I am partly deaf. Please speak slowly and clearly. Thank you. And that, because it was in front of their face, I think it's easy when someone's a medical personnel, they have a lot going on, that there's a lot they have to keep track of.
Mm-hmm.
So having the constant reminder of a big sign was helpful. And when I couldn't have it pinned to my Johnny anymore, they put it up on my, where I forget what they call it, but
Your chart was where your chart hangs on the
yes,
bed.
exactly,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. That's where they
Mm-hmm.
put it. And
Mm-hmm.
then the other thing I wanted to say is that I wondered if everyone knows about Sound Print, which is a an app, and it's a labor of love on the part who put it together. And what it is that you can go to a restaurant, and it has a meter that the app has a meter that registers decibels, so you can see how loud that restaurant is, and then you can report it on the app, and it collects data on or data, whatever, however you say it, um, for like say in Boston, you can look up restaurants to see which ones are the quietest ones and
Mm-hmm.
what time. and
Mhm.
what day they're the most quiet.
Mhm.
And someone pointed out if you like noisy restaurants, you can also find that out as well.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, I did mention, you can choose your place and choose the quieter space within a restaurant. But actually, if you're comfortable with your friends and family, you can actually choose the restaurant that's quieter versus louder. I have some deaf and hard of hearing friends, and so I always ask, I mean, we check with each other, right? Is this restaurant okay for you? And sometimes we're surprised. We show up and neither of us have been to the restaurant. We've heard great reviews, and it happens to be really loud. So then you have to choose the quietest space within the restaurant. But there's lots of things, lots of different ways we can advocate there's lots of different ways you can advocate for yourself, thinking about environmental factors, but also communication strategies. So I'm going to take us back to sort of, if we're wrapping up a little bit, that we talked about lip reading as the visual cues that you can pick up on the mouth, but also the face and the body. I've shared one online resource that you can use to practice on your own, but we also talked about buddying up with someone and coming up with word lists and sentence lists, and always thinking about context, no context versus context for the single word practice, but also the sentences. So if you have a series of random sentences, that's no context. If you have sentences of these are the things we're likely to hear when we go to the bank, that's contextual, right? I Carrie, is it time for us to wrap up? I dropped a copy of the PowerPoint slides one more time in the chat. So if you scroll up a little bit, you should be able to find it. It's titled Lip Reading, and the rest of the title is hidden. But you're welcome to download that. My email address is on there. If you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to connect.
Well, thank you so much. This has been great. The energy level has been very high tonight, and I know that feel pretty confident that most folks are leaving with a new tool in their toolkit to practice and help them understand more. I'm going to take a moment to just share a couple of other events that are coming up that I think might be useful to the group, and also to give a 1-minute update on what's going on with the hearing aid bill so folks know. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen now, if you just for a moment. Okay. Move this over here. So I'm excited to say there are, 4 or 5 great events in the next week. So I'm hoping that between the weekdays and the weekend that folks can find something that really would be of value to them. So starting on March 16th, GBH is hosting a great event called Musicians with Disabilities. These young musicians are going to both perform on their instruments, and then there is a panel discussion that's part of that event. It will be, if you choose to participate in person, the event starts at 6 p.m. at the GBH studio, Fraser Studio. You can look it up by going to gbh.com online. If you want to participate via Zoom, the Zoom event will start at 7 p.m. So check it out. If you're into music, I'm sure it will be a fabulous event. That's on March 16th. Okay, another musical theme here. This one is hosted by our sister chapter in New York City. It's called Making Musicals in Silence. And actually, a deaf composer named J. Alleman Zimmerman is going to talk about how he does what he does, given that he has significant and increasing hearing loss. Now, Jay's story of hearing loss is anchored in 9/11. The event led to his hearing loss, so part of his story is interesting because of that. But he will go on and talk about how, since that time, He's been able to use a bunch of different tools. You see down here, sign language, open captions, visual music, to do what he does on Broadway or off Broadway. So if that's of interest to you, check that out. That's actually on Tuesday, March 17th, St. Patty's Day. And you can email info at hearinglostnewyorkcity.org. I do want to say that all these events are also posted on the HLAA Boston website. So you can go on there and get the links to register if you're interested. On March 18th, we have Tina Childress, who is well known within HLAA circles, but she will be talking about via Zoom, assistive tech, and digital access. Now, I know we have hosted a couple of events on that topic, but some of you have been unable to make those. So here are two. There's this one on Wednesday, March 18th on that topic. And then there is also one on Saturday, March 21st, also on assistive tech, hosted by HLAA Southeastern Mass. So please go to our website to get the information to register on any of these four great events that are coming up in the next week to 10 days, if you are interested. Lastly, I want to go ahead to this last point in the interest of time. We've talked a lot about the hearing aid bill. That bill is still active in the Mass legislature, progressing, but not passed. As a result of refinements that have been made to the bill, administrative, not substantive at this point, the bill has a new bill number. It is now called H4959. And I just want to point that out. As you see going forward, communications from us encouraging people to email the legislators or perhaps attend a future hearing, understand that this is the new bill number. It's the same effort we have been talking about for the last year. It's just continuing to get refinements in the legislature, and we still need everyone to line up to support that bill. So just a heads up that nothing more substantive at this point. New bill number, still need your help getting it moved forward. So with that, I'd like to move ahead to close the meeting tonight if there's no other business.
Nini has her hand up.
Nini, you have your hand raised.
Sorry. I wanted to add to what Kelly said about the hearing aid bill. Yes, it does have the new number, which is 4959. And the reason why it has a new number is anytime they change anything about it, they change two little sentences. And that's why it has a new number. The other big, very important thing about it is that it has now moved to the Healthcare Finance Committee. It is no longer in the Finance Committee, it's in the Healthcare Finance Committee. And this committee is chaired by Representative Lawn of Watertown. We met with him. He was new and impressed with the experience of people with hearing loss because his sister recently had to buy a hearing aid and was at the holidays and was talking about the cost and how it had to be out of pocket. So he is the chair of this committee, and it's very important that we call the Healthcare Finance Committee and ask them to do, and this would be in the newsletter too, a CHIA analysis, which is an independent independent financial analysis of the cost so that the insurance companies are less likely to kill it. Because this is why it gets killed, because of the insurance companies. And I've been working on this type of bill for 30 years, as Paul here. And I want to, this is as far as I've ever seen it go. And I want to get it there.
Tara,
That's
Yes.
great. Thank you, Nini. That was a great close. So with that, thank you everyone for joining tonight. I hope you got as much value as I did, and look forward to our April 1st newsletter for information on our April meeting.
Thank you everyone for attending.
And thank you,
Thank
Dr. Maryam.
you.
Bye.